Hey, and welcome to the political show right here on Active FM, where radio has never been better. Hey, and welcome to the political show right here on Active FM, where radio has never been better. I'm your girl Cynthia, but you can call me Gix, and with me in studio we have
Gavin Inston.
Pastor Gavin Inston and
The Black Knight.
the Black Knight, right here on the political show where Christ politics is
Hot politics.
hot politics. And this week's hot politics, we are looking at something very interesting. We came about a video, well, Pastor Gavin shared a video titled Iran, depending on where you are in the world, collapse reveals the real villain, and it's not China. Pascal, do you want to give a more brief explanation?
Okay, the video came out from Glenn Beck, and I always liked Glenn Beck, but I felt he was a bit soft on what's really going on. On many, there are things he speaks about, like some of the things he says about AI. And he's talking about quantum computing and stuff. I think he still might be giving it a bit too much credit. Is it going to be used for bad? Yes, but it's not that powerful on its own. There's always going to be people behind it. But he's really insightful. He's always been a guy that's able to look into situations and draw up chalkboards and explain the detail behind things that have happened, why it's a problem, and all of those sorts of things. And he actually spoke about the situation in Iran, which the world media is actually not reporting about. And, there's a guy named Maya Tusi, Tousi, Tusi TV. There's also a Goldie Gamara or something. If you just look for Goldie, she's a Canadian Iranian. People like that who are talking about what's actually happening in Iran. And what's happening in Iran is not a protest. It's actually a revolution that's taking place. The Islamic regime is losing control, and the people are calling for the Shah's son, which is the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. They're calling for him to come back. They're saying Javid Shah on the streets, which means long live the king. Now, under the Iranian regime, to say something like that was treason, and it would be tantamount to death penalty. And yet they've lost control. Now, Glenn Beck was mentioning what is it that has caused Iran to implode. And I found it to be a very insightful thing because, we'll discuss this and talk about it. Should I mention what he says?
In terms of?
What it was the banks. Let me just say it anyway. It was the banks. So it was the banks. And if the banks have caused him to implode, then what it also means is that it's the banks that were keeping them afloat. And the banks were keeping them afloat against the will of the people. And so that's quite scary. And the question is, where in the world do you find a scenario where the banks have not influenced things? And so that's our discussion today, especially in a time in South Africa where we've got top military personnel that are refusing to obey the president. When the president said, please exclude Iran from the naval exercises that we were doing with Iran, China, Russia. And the generals told him to fly a kite, basically. And they still did the maneuvers with Iran. So we've got big challenges here in South Africa.
Yeah.
And to what extent, are the banks pulling the strings even? Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about.
We are speaking about, in Glenn Beck's video, he speaks about a story of Mo. It's not a true story. It's an allegorical story.
An allegory, yeah.
Of
allegorical
Mo,
story.
an apple farmer who represents Iran, and Ming, a massive apple biorefinery representing China's teapot oil refineries. So in the story, Mo builds his entire business around one guaranteed buyer, borrowing heavily to scale up. When Ming suddenly stops accepting apples due to capacity limits, Mo collapses, not because of poor farming, but because its entire operation depended on a single buyer with no alternatives. The banks which owned and insured Mo's infrastructure had never trusted Mo. Instead, they trusted Ming. Um, they structured the relationship as a barter system to bypass international sanctions, allowing oil to flow without money, changing hands, keeping themselves legally insulated. Pascal, what does this have to do with Iran and China and oil?
Well, this is that basically he was giving an allegory for how China was buying oil from Iran. So Iran was shipping the oil, but they're not making the payments to Iran. So they're giving Iran other stuff they need, probably shipments of cash and all sorts of stuff. And the banks are obviously working with China. And so they're probably giving the Iranians, some sort of facilities, that they can continue and all of this sort of stuff. And so the banking cartels worked in such a way to break the sanctions and to allow the Iranian regime to continue to function. And this is actually what he's talking about. And without the Chinese, without the banks, what I want to say is without American presidents who've given Iran a ton of cash, Europe as well has given Iran a ton of cash, and all of these sorts of things, the Iranian regime would not have been able to stay in power. And then what happened now, all of a sudden, China's over capacity, and so they needed to slow down their oil purchases from Iran. And the Iran economy's collapsed. And I think also the banking systems that were propping this whole thing up, I think there's a problem that the banks have got because the banks are in real trouble, in this debt-based economy, and there's certain indicators saying that the banks are really overstressing their books, and their liquidity and all of this sort of stuff. And so it looks like it got to a place where they're no longer able to fund the government. And also it's very suspicious, when you look at the fact that the international media has spoken nothing about this thing. And even when they've spoken, what has happened in Iran has been the unmitigated slaughter of innocent people. They've even imported people from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, some from Lebanon and places like this, militias from their proxies. And these guys are walking in the middle of city centers and that with AK-47s, just shooting people left, right, and center. And the world's media say nothing about it. And I just think about some of the debates I had with Black Knight about Gaza. And you think about how that war's been promoted. And yet nothing is being said about Iran. Absolutely nothing. And what's also not being told in the media is that the people in Iran have actually risen up against Islam. It's not just against the Islamic regime. And when you listen to people of Persians, because obviously Iran has different population group, but the overwhelming majority of Iranians are Persian. They speak Farsi. That's the Persian language. And I've been listening for years. They've been calling Iran, their country, the Islamic occupation of Iran. And so a government is that unpopular and is that brutal. It makes the apartheid regime look like choir boys. Okay, it makes Mussolini and even what was his name? The guy from Uganda, Idi Amin.
Yeah.
Makes him look like a hero of the people, if you know what I'm saying. And so the fact of the matter is they've been propped up. And I was actually listening to an interview on Turning Point because Black Knight was telling me off air about Turning Point and how wicked they are and all of this kind of stuff. So they were interviewing Maya Tusi. And one of the guys from Turning Point was saying, yeah, but we don't want to get into other wars. And Maya Tusi said, first of all, the Iranian people don't want you to come and do this. They just want you to help stop the Iranians doing what they're doing and prevent them killing so many people. The other thing was he said to him, and by the way, it was your government that toppled the Shah. So you owe us. You meddled in Iran in 1979. If it wasn't for the Americans and the Russians and the French, all these people who were all supposed to be enemies, we were supposed to be in the middle of a Cold War, they all got together to overthrow the Shah. The communists in Iran worked together with the Islamists in Iran. And when Ayatollah Khomeini got into power, guess what the first thing he did was, Black Knight? He slaughtered the communists. That was the first thing he did. He slaughtered the communists. And they were forcing women to wear burqas. One of the problems was that the Shah took his youngsters, his best youngsters from the nation, and funded them to go and study in American universities and European universities. Guess what? They came back. They were supporting Ayatollah Khomeini and the communists because they became stupid socialists, if you know what I'm saying. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, the bankers are behind all of this stuff. And how many wicked regimes around the world are being propped up by bankers? And why has the media not spoken out about what has happened in Iran? Okay, and it's the same as the abortion holocaust, which they say nothing about. So, basically China can't buy oil. And the whole deal fell apart. Because the bankers obviously couldn't fund Iran without China buying oil. And China can't buy oil because I think their economy's got more debt than American economy, and they're in trouble.
Yeah. Black Knight, what are your thoughts on this?
I think Pastor Kevin has said a lot of bunch, which we did speak about, and I do agree with what he was saying. And obviously, looking at the whole allegory that we basing this whole thing on, we obviously can see that is, like Glenn Beck actually made it like Sesame Street for anyone who doesn't or wouldn't understand the situation. If you follow it by the news and the books and stuff, it was easy to understand. And you look into this whole thing and that's what you're seeing. So I guess even if, because now the whole shadow banking system is now not working for them, because they basing their whole customer based on one person, which they buying like 90%. So they really messed up. And obviously the whole thing, and this has nothing to do, like Pastor Kevin said, with the people. The people had a problem with the government like way before this whole situation, because the government has put the country, like I think we've also experienced this, where if the country was facing what we call load shedding, they were facing blackouts, they don't have water. For me, when I was listening to this, I'm like, this is literally South Africa. Crazy that
No ways. We're still building buildings.
Yeah, we're still doing that, but these are the essentials, I would say, like water, electricity. Even though you're building buildings, but if you don't have those two, like even now, Hammanskraal, there is a place in Pretoria, Hammanskraal, that situation is still not solved, and it's also taking years.
Yeah, but that's just water.
But people are dying.
That's just water with cholera in it. It's not like there's no water supply. It's just the guys are not cleaning the water. And I'm not saying it's not a big problem. Hammanskraal is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And why the focus on it stop? You see, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Who's controlling what our politicians are doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Who is it?
I believe Iran also has a lot of, like, their hands is in a lot with our politicians.
Well, they say that South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice for crime against the Gazan people and genocide and stuff. Why aren't they taking Iran?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I saw one of the Iranians posted. They posted a picture of Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. They said this guy's got a warrant of arrest against him for the International Court of Justice. And then they have another picture of the Khomeini, the current leader.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. But the numbers coming out from Iran are that Khomeini, the Ayatollah, has slaughtered more than 30,000 people with AK-47s on city streets of people that are unarmed. So, who are these bankers that are keeping people like this in power?
Yeah, true.
And what's going on at Davos with the World Economic Forum?
Oh, yes.
Because we're talking now, we were talking because Black Knight's telling me how evil Turning Point USA is, and I vehemently disagree. And that Erica Kirk, according to Candace Owens, and she's telling the truth, was involved in the murder, and she was involved, and she
was
met
just-
with people.
I was just asking questions.
And a fort.
I'm not validating.
No,
I
that's
was
what
just
that's what they
asking
all say.
questions.
Candace
It's just
Owens and
questions.
Tucker Carlson, and they all say it, but they don't ask questions about Israel. They make a statement and say, no, all the evil in the world is caused by Israel. All of the evil everywhere is caused by Israel. And the thing is, at the end of the day, while people are running after this, Davos is happening.
Yeah.
The same bankers are in charge of Davos. And no one's talking about what's going on there. Because they're running after Turning Point USA. I mean, honestly, and Turning Point USA was a godsend to America because it brought Christian values on campus. Now, everyone's saying that they're so evil. But what is it that they're preaching that is evil? They're taking Christians who are arguing against the atheistic view of evolution on college campuses. Okay, they're arguing atheism versus theism. And all of these, they're defending Christianity against Islam. What are they doing that's so evil? Okay, if you think Christianity is evil, then I could say, I understand logically what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a guy named Dave Hodges I've been listening to. He's promoting all of this garbage that Candace Owens speaks. In fact, I stopped following them. It got a bit much. Then he starts saying, I'm going to connect all the dots. But can I tell you what they don't do? They don't give actual evidence.
Yeah.
They say this and this and this and this is it without showing the evidence.
We didn't know that we're going to tie in Turning Point USA with this whole thing with Iran, but I guess it's the same concept and stuff. But in Habakkuk 2 verse 12, it says, woe to him who builds his realm by unjust gain, to set his nest on high, to escape the clutches of the ruin. And I mean, if you look at this verse, it speaks about the fact that if you set your build, whether it's your investments or all of these things that these people from Davos and stuff are finding their riches in, the people who are controlling the banks and stuff like that, they are setting their nest to ruin, basically. And I think that's the hope that we have as Christians, that as long as we are honest, as long as we are transparent in the ways that we are doing things, in the ways that we are trading and stuff, that we will always find success at the end of it.
Amen.
And even if it's not the worldly type of success, and sometimes you sit back and we think that, oh, but these people are getting away with all of this stuff. At the end of it all, it's God is the one who judges.
Amen.
And we have to live our lives based on eternal purpose. And that is just something to think about. This has been an amazing show. I'm your girl, Cynthia. And right here from the Political Show, we have Pastor Gavin and the Black Knight on the show as well. On Axo FM,
Hot politics.
where Christ politics is
Hot politics.
hot politics.
This is the Political Show.